Being rejected is not the end of your life. Rather, it's a means to an end for your life. And that end is your destiny. Find out more about this. Hello, how you doing? My name is Toks. I am the author of Rejected for a Purpose, How God Uses Rejection to Help You Find and Fulfill Your Destiny. During an interview with Anderson Cooper in 16 Minutes, Adele Atkins, the 10-time Grammy Award winner, was having a conversation with him about one of her songs. She mentioned that she didn't write the song to become famous. She wrote the song to get over a breakup. That song turned out to be the #1 selling song in 2011. It sold 20 million copies. It made her an overnight success. And what inspired her to write the song? A breakup. Rejection is a catalyst for success. We can see this truth reinforced in the story about a young man that perhaps you're familiar with in the Bible. His name is Joseph. His story starts out in Genesis chapter 37. In verse 3, we are told that his father Jacob loved him more than all of his other brothers, and consequently, his father made him a special coat. That is very significant because in biblical Old Testament times, the way a person is dressed is very significant. It often reflected or represented the person's status, function, or purpose in life. For example, priests dressed a certain way to let people know they were priests. Prophets dressed a certain way to let people know they were prophets. Kings dressed a certain way to let people know they were kings. Widows, lepers, those who are blind, they were dressed a certain way to let people know their prevailing condition. So from that perspective, I want you to have in mind that the way a person is dressed is somewhat a reflection of their calling, their purpose, or their status in life. With that in mind, Joseph was clothed with a special coat made by his father. Based on the text, that coat represents the fact that he was his father's beloved. In Genesis 37 verse 4, the Bible says his brothers hated him when they saw that his father loved him more than the other brothers. In our time, we use the word or the phrase haters, and we think we came up with the phrase. Newsflash, that phrase started in Genesis 37 verse 4. Joseph's brothers were hating on him. They rejected him because his father loved him more than them. They were hating on him. To add insult upon injury, verse 5 of Genesis 37 says, Joseph had a dream and he told it to his brothers. And the Bible says they hated him even more. Not only did they hate him because his father loved him more than them, they hated him even more because he had dreams. In a sense, their hatred of him, their rejection of him is an example of when people reject you because you exceed expectations. Because in a sense, Joseph was more favored than them, and Joseph was more special in the eye of his father than they were. And it's not Joseph's fault that his father made him a coat. It's not Joseph's fault that his father loved him more than them all. Just like it's not your fault that in some cases people are hating on you because you're special, because you have aspirations, because you have dreams, because you're different. People are hating on you because they feel intimidated. You might even hear them say things like, you think you're better than us? You think you're smarter than us? You think you're all that? Nevertheless, this is what Joseph was facing from his brothers. And remember, I told you the way a person was dressed is very significant. Is it any wonder that in Genesis 37, verse 20, his brothers connived to kill him? And when they saw him, the Bible says they stripped him of the coat. Note, they stripped him of the coat. And they didn't kill him. They decided to sell him to slavery. Again, that's a form of rejection. So they sold him to slavery, and Joseph ends up in Egypt. In Genesis 39, verse 1, we are told Joseph ends up serving a man named Potiphar, who was the captain of the guard, one of Pharaoh's officers. While Joseph worked in Potiphar's house, his wife, Potiphar's wife, was checking out Joseph. And in Genesis 39, verses 7 and 8, the wife tried to seduce Joseph to sleep with her, and he rejected her advances toward him. Consequently, she lashed back and falsely accused Joseph of trying to take advantage of her. One day when Joseph was doing his work, Potiphar's wife came forcefully to get Joseph to sleep with her. And there was a struggle, and Joseph left his garment in her hand. This is the second time that Joseph is losing his garment.